Welcome to FCCI's Pathway to Purpose webinar series. It's September. Can't believe this year is just flying by. So glad that you're here, that you've taken the time to join us here today. We are looking forward to this webinar today featuring Matt Brubaker, part of Christianity Explored, leading that initiative in the kingdom. He's also going to be bringing a special guest in with him today, Bob Dyer, who serves as chaplain with Joe Gibbs Racing. So really excited about the conversation we're going to have today and hoping that you'll be a part of that. Jump in with us as we move forward through the webinar, and we'll bring those gentlemen in here in just a few minutes as we get into the meat of the webinar. But before we do, if you would, please take a moment, do introduce yourself there in the chat feature of our live stream, and use that chat feature as well to submit any questions you have for our webinar guests, comments that you have along the way. We would love to have you be a part of this conversation in that way, and love to meet you there. So if you would do that, introduce yourselves, and we'll look forward to the opportunity to engage with you further as we go along. Well, have you been to the FCCI website recently? I'll bring that up here and pull in some content. Looking forward to the opportunity for you to continue to engage with us here at FCCI, to learn more about the opportunities to serve within the kingdom and leverage the resources, the content that we have available. In particular, I'm just going to navigate over here on our website where it says Engage with FCCI and drop down to the FCCI Connect app. And you'll see I've already got that tab pulled up here, so I'll just go ahead and pop that up. And we would love to have you be a part of our FCCI Connect online community. You'll see that, yes, that webinar link is there in the Connect live stream app there and in our feed. So I'd love to have you be a part of this. We've got over 900 folks that are a part of our Connect community. Would love to have you be a part of that as well. So jump over there, fcci.org, and hover over that Engage with FCCI menu navigation option, and then select FCCI Connect app and go ahead and register. Be a part of that community with us. Also, love to highlight quickly the Banded initiative that's a part of FCCI, and we're really excited about seeing this initiative continue to get traction around the country in markets where men are engaging with FCCI through this Banded initiative. So join banded.com is where you can go to learn more about that opportunity to connect and to get involved in those local groups. Also, trips, excursions, linking arms with this growing network of high-capacity business owners and entrepreneurs around the country. In fact, you might be the ideal Banded guide to bring this initiative to your city. So make sure you check that out through the website. Again, join banded.com, and you can express your interest in being a part of that there. Well, we have another live webinar that will be coming on October 21. That's the third Tuesday of October. And I'll be getting information out to you about that soon. And we're excited about several options for our webinar topic and guest. And so we'll be finalizing that in the days ahead here. And so look for that email coming out to you in just the next week or two. So for those of you that are headed to the FCCI gathering, man, we are super excited. It kicks off this coming week, Thrive in Full there in Sarasota. Looking forward to being together with some of you and having that opportunity to, as we read in John 10:10, to pursue that life in full, that life that God has called us to, that we believe we can have as the Spirit of God is working in and through us, that flourishing life to thrive in our calling. And so we're excited about that. And quite honestly, one of the things that I'm really excited about is the fact that Matt Brubaker is going to be there with us and be a part of that conversation with us. So great to have you, Matt, with us here today, and looking forward to the time together when we're there in Sarasota next week. So thanks for joining us. Oh, we are.
And I'm sorry about that. Great to be here with you today, Ken. Sorry about that.
Yeah, great to have you, Matt. And so I understand you'd mentioned just a little bit ago, you've got some travel coming up here, so you're going to be on the road a little bit, a lot going on.
Yeah.
Thankful for you taking the time here today. Where are you headed next as you continue in this calling that God's placed on your life here at Christianity
Yeah, so going to
Explored.
be up in Edmonton, Canada. Our Canadian board gets together in person, and so we're going to be doing that. And then we're having a dinner for a number of local people in ministry to help them think through building a culture of evangelism where they are. So excited about that time. I think I'm home for about 36 hours, so I get to do a couple of laundry, repack the suitcase.
That's great.
Warmer clothes, thankfully, for Sarasota.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, we are so thankful for this focus here today as we look at Christianity Explored and the calling that God's placed on you to head that up. And so, I was talking to you a bit ago, and we were talking about this fact that FCCI, even in our founding, our early years, we go back to three S's, the three S's of salvation, sanctification, and service. Even in some of our early documentation, that was the foundation of who we were, who we are, how we were established as an organization to really focus in those arenas. So, talk to me a little bit about Christianity Explorer. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how does that play out through what you do.
Yeah, I want to come back to those three S's in a minute because I think they really fit our focus around the business workplace environment. But to give you the bigger background, Christianity Explored came out of the early to mid 90s in London. John Stott's ministry was going strong there at All Souls Church, but he realized there was a challenge for the church, and that was amongst postmodernism, amongst this move away from anchoring in truth. He saw evangelists here and there doing something that made him really uncomfortable, and that was moving away from truth as the
Mm,
foundation for the
yeah.
conversation, trying to meet culture where it was from a postmodernism standpoint. And he got uncomfortable with that, and he went to Rico Tice, who was his evangelist and our co-founder, who's the evangelist at the church at the time. And he said, Rico, we need to come up with a new way, or there's nothing new in the gospel, but a way of engaging London
Mm,
now that
yeah.
says instead of meeting them in a place of questioning truth, of instead saying, here is truth,
Mm,
and here is how it affects our lives. So letting people, at the end of the day, we came up with a resource called Christianity Explored that was about bringing people into the Gospel of Mark. And
mm,
instead of it being an explanation of the gospel, it was let's meet Jesus in his own words. Let's see what Jesus has to say about who he is, why he came, and what's our response. And so that's what Christianity Explored came out of. Today, we've got that as it's both the name of the organization and it's our central resource. It's a 7-week course through the book of Mark that's typically
wow.
done in small and large groups. We hear of everything from people going through it one-on-one to churches that will host dinners for 200 people, and they'll have them sitting around 15, 20 tables around the room and kind of going through it that way. So it's used kind of all those different ways. We've since expanded. We've got a shorter option called Hope Explored and a discipleship series called Discipleship Explored, and we've a few other things in there. But our real core isn't about running our course. It's
Mm,
recognizing that we need to help create cultures of evangelism. Well, help foster. You're the ones creating them. We're helping to foster cultures of
yeah.
evangelism in churches,
Mm,
Christian businesses, and amongst neighbors. And that's really our drive is to help create these cultures of evangelism. Because as somebody put it really well, somebody who's been using our resource for 20 years in Colorado Springs, just last week said, it's not about creating a program, it's about
mm,
creating a mission.
yeah.
And that difference is so important. One is a culture. One
Hmm.
says we've got an ongoing drive towards this.
Yeah.
The other says we're checking a box,
Right.
and it's about that ministry impact.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I want you to flesh out just a little bit more for us here in just a second. Maybe how do we define that culture of evangelism? And of course, in our context, as with the business owners and leaders that are here on the webinar today, then how do we flesh that? But before we dive into that, let me step back a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about Matt, your family. Give us a little bit of background. Who are you,
Yeah,
and
sure.
how's
So
God been
I've
working in your
been,
life?
yeah, I've been a mix of most of my career has been in the ministry world.
Mm,
Right out of school, kicking and screaming, the Lord brought me into college ministry through Campus Crusade for Christ. I
Oh
say
yeah.
kicking and screaming because the joke was my major was the pre-ministry major at my school, and I was determined that wasn't me. The Lord had other plans there. Was did that for a while, and then ended up at the Jesus Film Project, where I was a film producer, and then moved into more entrepreneurial efforts from there. Smaller ministries,
Mm,
actually started a couple businesses. Along the way, had been looking to get a master's and was just noticing that a lot of us in ministry knew our theology really well, but no one could help me negotiate a contract
mm,
in one of the organizations I was in. And I thought, wow, I think I'm going to go get an MBA and see how I can apply it. So started a couple small businesses in there, helped number of smaller ministries kind of get going, and that's kind of been my career. I've connected with Christianity Explored though about a decade ago when I was at a church in Orlando that distinctively didn't have a
mm.
culture of evangelism at the
Oh wow.
beginning.
Yeah.
And our pastor really, really had a heart to see that change. And he began a path of how do I transition our culture to evangelism? And part of that
Mm,
was he led Christianity Explored in his home. He modeled evangelism for the church. He talked about it from up front. He made gospel conversations be normalized in our church,
mm,
and it made a huge, huge difference.
mm.
And so that's about 2 years ago, the opportunity came up to take on a leadership role in the organization, and I had jumped at it with my history with it.
That's great. Well, the question was forming in my mind as you're talking about church, and wow, a church may not have a culture of evangelism. And so what's the difference? Can you just maybe flesh that a little bit more
Yeah.
for us? I mean, you talked about people can actually just have a language, a message, be able to speak the gospel. But what would kind of define the difference of a church that maybe is or isn't a culture of evangelism?
Yeah. So as we start talking about what a culture of evangelism is, I'd love to introduce our guest, Bob Dyer.
Hmm.
He's joining me as well. Bob is the lead chaplain at Joe Gibbs Racing. He's also along the way started a small little ministry, not small little, but started as a small little ministry, but has now grown significantly internationally called Seed Sports. And he's also an elder at his church. And I brought Bob, or I asked Bob to come along in this conversation, and he's going to get a little more practical with us as he goes, because when we kind of have a norm at Christianity Explored of we never want to do webinars, breakout sessions, things like that that feel like they're just a run our course, because that's not creating a culture. It goes
Hmm.
right back to
Back
program.
to program, yeah.
Mhm.
And so instead, I'd
Hmm.
prefer you meet someone who's doing it. So when we're talking to churches about cultures of evangelism, we usually have panels of pastors that have created cultures of
Hmm.
evangelism. And so for this, I asked Bob to come along as someone who has created a culture of evangelism at Joe Gibbs Racing. Um, so to
Welcome,
answer
Bob.
that question from a church standpoint, yeah, hey Bob, uh,
All right, you guys, good to see you. Good to see
good to have you
Great to
on
have
with
you
us.
here.
To answer that question from a church standpoint, that looks like Barna did a study about a year
Hmm.
and a half ago now, where they asked pastors how effective they were at reach or how effective their church was at reaching the lost.
Hmm.
And less than 1%, and the key word there is less than 1% of North American pastors said their church was effective at reaching the lost.
Wow.
Right. And what is effectiveness in evangelism? Effectiveness in evangelism is defined by taking a step of faith to share the gospel and leaving the results up to the Lord. Right. So
Hmm.
effectiveness is having those strong, well communicated, well relationally founded
Hmm.
opportunities for people to hear and then trusting the Lord in the result.
Yeah.
So these 1% or less than 1% of pastors were feeling that was true of them.
you.
Sadly,
Wow.
I don't have a stat like that for Christian owned and operated businesses, but I have a feeling based
Hmm.
on the leaders I've talked to, it's something they struggle with as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for us, creating a culture of evangelism is normalizing, it is creating a culture where we're normalizing walking Christians having gospel conversations.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That's a great
Where
definition.
the
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Where the fear barrier is taken
Hmm.
down,
Hmm.
and instead we understand what it is to care for people, to seek them out,
Hmm.
um, and to
Mhm.
pursue them.
Yeah.
Bob, you'd shared some thoughts on that the other day with me and how you guys have approached and just from a high level, I think
hmm
Culture of Evangelism there at Joe Gibbs Racing. And what got that started for you guys?
Well, it starts with leadership. And of course, we have a fantastic leader named Joe Gibbs, who's won a few Super Bowls and won a few NASCAR championships. And um, when he asked me to come over and be the chaplain for Joe Gibbs Racing, we had about 15 or 20 people. And he basically said, I want you to come over and care for our people. And so his heart was, I want to care for the most valuable asset we have, which is people. Now, a lot of organizations don't view it that way. Okay, and maybe it's not even true in some situations, but I would say that it's probably true in most businesses that your most valuable asset is the people. And so he said, Hey, I want you to just build relationships and do ministry and minister to the people who are part of Joe Gibbs Racing. And so we have four chaplains there now and working with about 500 people. And so, but the interesting part is we were always looking for tools to use. And the best tool, without a doubt, the best tool that we've ever used is Christianity Explored. And that's probably why Matt asked me to be on this today, because it's just true. We eventually, I was introduced to Rico 10 or 12 years ago at a ministry conference, and I heard about Christianity Explored, and I was like, oh, this looks really good. And one of the reasons it looked really good to us, which is a little unusual, is we're building race cars. Okay, we're building race cars, engineering race cars, racing cars. And so our people are very good conceptually, but they're not great readers. We have people with PhDs, so we have people who read very well, of course, but their strong suit is not reading things and interpreting them, but seeing things and learning visually and learning concepts.
Yeah.
And what I loved about Christianity Explored was Rico basically takes you through video by video through understanding the gospel by teaching you concepts. And
Bob, I'm going to pause you only because I think that those details I want to hear. I want to hear a little bit more in just a
uh,
minute.
okay,
But thank you. I appreciate
I
that.
could I could run on and on, I'm sure. So,
Yeah, no, no, no. But going back to why we want to create a culture of evangelism in the workplace, as we look
Mm.
at it, the average American spends 90,000 hours of their life, or approximately a third of their life, amongst their coworkers.
mm,
Yet it's often the black hole in our view of mission as believers.
mhm,
I know that whether it's my kids' sports teams, whether it's other parents that I'm meeting, my neighbors, otherwise, it's easy for that to be my view of mission. The workplace is often that black hole in it, especially for those that are on this call, right? Leaders. We're there. And when we're there, we've got metrics. We've got profit metrics, we've got output metrics, we've got various performance metrics that we're holding ourselves to.
mhm,
But that metric, that relational metric of how we're making a difference in the lives of those people who are spending a third of their lives with us is oftentimes not on that radar. And so when I think about why is the workplace such a critical place for creating a culture of evangelism, to me, it's that these people are oftentimes spending more time with us than they are their own families,
mhm,
than they are the neighbors, everybody who I listed, who I typically think of as those that I have influence with. Um, and so it's such a great and important opportunity.
Hmm.
Um, so with Christianity Explored, it's become a real emphasis of ours, particularly in the U.S., though not exclusively, to see those cultures of evangelism happen, not
mm,
just in churches, not just
Mhm.
amongst neighbors, but as well in the workplace. A few
mm,
quick examples before I go to our ultimate case study here, which Bob's going to share. But a few other examples that have come up interestingly, and just the last couple days we've heard of. In fact, it was just yesterday on an organizational prayer call. We learned of a marketing and communications company
Mm.
in Beijing that is
Ah.
running Christianity Explored ongoing in their lunch times.
mm,
And I saw an amazing picture of them sitting around a table going through the resources together.
mm,
Um, I learned of a Zoom call of 40 civil service workers in a country that I'm not sure I'm allowed to say yet, so I won't say it. But it was a civil service worker who had a heart for his workplace
Hmm.
and got 40 people, and it was easier to do it via Zoom, and it's a mixture of believers and not. And then, we've got a number of other companies around the US that are figuring out how to fit evangelism into their rhythms. And so, Ken, as I think about the three S's you shared
Yeah.
earlier,
Right.
it's how do we help our employees on that salvation standpoint? How do we put
Hmm.
the gospel simply in front of them? Jesus, in his own words, here's who he says he is,
Hmm.
why he came, and how we need to respond. How do we put that in front of people? How do we help with the sanctification process in terms of once that has happened, how can we help them along that journey? And then finally, service. How can we help our other employees, our other coworkers who now are believers, who are sanctified? How do we help them to catch that same vision and be a part of that? And it might be by being a co-leader in a process for a time or just someone who's inviting and opening the door. So as I look at those three S's, when you shared that
Hmm.
with me earlier, that really connected with what I think the purposes of a culture of
Hmm.
evangelism in your workplace are.
Yeah. Well, and one of the
Mm.
things, Matt, if I could just real quick, I had
Yeah,
pulled up
please.
and I had shown you, and if I can get it the unblurry version here, but A Walk in the Market is one of the books. It just tells the story of the Fellowship of Companies for Christ, and I had read a portion of that earlier today that was focusing on those three S's, and one of the things that just really jumped out at me, and here's how this ties in is if we don't talk about this, if we don't engage in this intentionally, it's easy for this just to kind of fall onto the back burner, right? And Bruce
Absolutely.
Wilkinson, a name that most of us know as a great teacher who was a part of the early days of FCCI. So he is teaching this salvation, sanctification, service framework to an FCCI group. He's teaching this along. He's encouraging them to focus on that. And here's the words from this book. I'm reading right from the book. He says, if you lead 10 people to the Lord last year, he asked, could you lead 12 or 15 to the Lord this year? Then suddenly Bruce stopped. He was thoughtful for a few seconds. Then he said it had just occurred to him that at Walk Through the Bible, where he was working at the time, that Walk Through the Bible was not focusing on leading people to Christ, even though it was a great ministry for discipleship. In those days, he was teaching 7,500 seminars a year. Goes on to say that he made a renewed focus at Walk Through the Bible to actually present the gospel, and they began to see an average of 50,000 salvations a year coming to the actual spiritual kingdom impact bottom line through Walk Through the Bible. But it came when he was delivering this content to FCCI, and he stopped and
Mm.
went,
Mm.
wait a minute. Here I am, a ministry, as you were saying, churches, less than 1% being effective. Here was
Mhm.
Bruce Wilkinson saying, we're not doing it. So it's really
Mhm.
easy for anybody in any role, in any position, to just not really put the focus where it needs to be and to let this be
Yeah.
on the back burner. So,
Oh, I mean, it's
yeah.
so easy, isn't it? And I mean,
Mhm.
as the one promoting it, I want to recognize just how easy it is for things to fall behind, for the other
Mhm.
priorities, the other metrics, the other things that we're doing to become that priority.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'd love for Bob to share a little bit before he does, real quick. I realized when I was telling you a little bit about CE, what I left out that Bob was speaking to was a bit about our form factor. So our
Mm.
courses are typically videos paired with a workbook with a number of questions. And the workbook's kind of a strange word for it, but it's, they're booklets that have those questions in it. People can write their answers, they can write down thoughts. There's typically scripture references in there or there are scripture references in there because at our core, our DNA is letting people see what Scripture actually says and answering it that way. So I put that out there just for context. But what I'd love for Bob to share as just a case study of creating that culture of evangelism. So you heard
Mm.
what Coach Gibbs asked them to do. I'd love, Bob, if you could share for us kind of high level how that culture was created, how you, Coach
Mm.
Gibbs, and other leadership opened the door for that, and then what did the actual execution look like? What for you and your team does that
Mm.
look like? How do you gather people together? the various pieces of what that is.
Yeah, I think since our goal was really to care for people, especially their spiritual needs, and so we started really just building relationships and getting to know people. We have the luxury of being able to be at the race shop where there, 300 to 500 people over the last 10 years, all the time, and so we can go and just and talk with people throughout the day, and for us, we created some structures that would be helpful to us. One is what we call a large group Bible study, 1 day a week, where we provide lunch and we created an environment where people could come and be a part of that. And they didn't have to bring a Bible. They didn't have to lead in prayer. They didn't have to read the Bible. They didn't have to say a thing if they didn't want to, but they got a free lunch. And then they also were there to hear a speaker, someone we would have would come in like Matt, who could come in and share about their ministries, what they're doing. We get involved with lots of ministries around the world, and so it created an environment where it was okay for people who had never read a Bible. We have people who come who've never read a Bible and never gone to church, and they show up at our Wednesday Bible study. And so we make sure that they feel comfortable there. But it's also what I would call Christianity 101. And so we have used Christianity Explored in certain ways in that setting, showing particular videos of Christianity Explored. But the real heartbeat of how we've seen God use Christianity Explored was really through our small groups, because our large group really feeds our small group with people who want to go deeper. Either they want to go deeper in their faith, or they want to really understand, they want to kick the tires of Christianity a little bit and find out, what does this really mean? And what does it really mean for me to have a relationship with God? And why did Jesus really come? And what did he do? And who is he? And so when we found Christian Explored, I said, boy, this is the group that we would like for everybody to go through before they get into another small group. Okay. And so that's the way we try to use it. We try to use it as a place that everybody then hears the gospel and can understand the gospel and can spend literally weeks talking about it. Sometimes, if we have a lot of discussion in a small group about a particular video that we've just seen, then we might take 2 weeks on that or 3 weeks on that. That's up to the leader. So it's not like we're trying to get through this in a hurried amount of time. Um, and I've just had such joy leading a group like that and getting to know new people, but also, we had a guy in there one time. I think of him right now because he was really raised in a particular type of church setting, and I remember when we showed the video on grace, and we finished it. He said, "Grace." He said, "Nobody ever told me about grace. Why did nobody tell me about grace?" And I was like, Isn't that wonderful? That here's a company that's providing a lunchtime opportunity, and lunch is the only time we found that it's really effective for us. And this man who really wasn't a believer because he didn't understand the basics of Christianity. And Christianity Explored helped him really come to grips with, how do I really have a relationship with Jesus Christ? And so that's just been such a joy to see how God has used Christianity Explored. We've had Rico come and speak at our race shop a couple of times, and that's been fantastic. But uh, more than anything, we get the joy of seeing people go through Christianity Explored and really wrestle with Christianity and the gospel. What is the gospel? What does it mean to know Christ? How do I follow him? And it's just been wonderful for us. So it's been oh, our biggest tool. We feel like we have a tool belt, and Christian Explored is one of the main tools, kind of like a hammer or a screwdriver or something that we feel like we kind of have to have, because it's a great way for us to consistently take people through the gospel. So is that
Yeah, that's
I
helpful.
love it.
Bob, so let's say one of the guys who's been alongside you guys, alongside you and your chaplain team for a while. One of the regular employees though, whether it's a mechanic or an engineer or an accountant, whatever it is, has been alongside you guys for a while and is looking to invite people to a Christianity Explored course. They're looking to invite people in for that opportunity, right?
Mhm.
Bob, I've been praying for Charlie who sits next to me. I don't, what do I say? How do I invite him? What kind of what coaching would you
That's
give
good.
to that guy who's looking to ask Charlie?
Well, I would say number one is if he's really a friend and you really care about him, he probably knows that.
Hmm.
And so I kind of assume that's a given. And so if that's a given and you were to say that guy, because we do it all the time, where we will invite a guy to come to, hey, we're starting a new Christianity Explored class and we'd love
Mm,
for you to be a part. And, we fill it up with usually 8 or 10 people. And but I would tell that person to say, hey, this is going to be a great way for you to explore what really is real basic Christianity. And a lot of our guys, for them, they're like, oh, I would like to do that because
mm,
they'll say, I'm kind of at ground zero. And we
mhm,
go, okay, that's great. This would be super for you. Okay. Or sometimes we have people who tell us, well, I really, I've tried Christianity and it really didn't help me. And we say, well, it could be that you really didn't experience real Christianity. So come to this session, the last 8 to 10 weeks, and we'd love for you to go through it. And it's a great way for you to communicate and to ask questions. And some people are like, oh, well, I've never been able to do that. That would be great. So just hearing somebody proclaim the gospel,
mm,
you know, we use Christian Explored as a place where people can really ask questions. They can say, hey, I don't really understand that or don't agree with that. Show me where that is in the Bible so I can look it up. Uh, we try to teach our guys how to use their phones to use the Bible, to read the Bible.
mm,
And
mm,
so that's another thing that we do. But that would be some of the ways I would invite somebody and just say, hey, or recently I had a guy who was one of our engineers, and we've known each other for years, probably 10 years. And I said, "Hey, are you interested in going through some material with me?" And he said, "Yeah, but I don't really want to be in a group." And I said,
mm,
"Well, let's just do it one-on-one, just me and you." And he said, "Oh, I'd do that in a heartbeat." And I
mm,
said, "Okay, when you want to do it?" He said, "Monday at 1 o'clock." And we always take lunch from 11:30 to 12:30. I said, "Monday at 1 o'clock, I'm going to meet with you every Monday." So he just came in yesterday for the third week. So we talked about sin yesterday. That's a tough video to watch together.
mm,
He says,
Absolutely.
we're a mess. I said, yeah, we are. I said, I'm a mess. I don't know about you, but I said,
mm,
it shows us that we have a great need, don't we? And he said, yeah, yeah, I never thought about it that way. We need some help. And I said, yeah, we do. So it's basic stuff.
mm,
Yeah.
I'm not a real smart guy. So Christian Explored really helps me. And God has been at work in the lives of our guys, and we pray for them, try to encourage them. We try not to hit them over the head with Bibles, but we try to help them understand the truth of the gospel
mm,
and who Jesus is and what he's done. So uh, you can't go wrong with that.
mhm,
I love it. So a couple things. First, Bob,
All right.
you and I were talking late last week, and we were celebrating fruit real quick. So I want to hear it in two different ways. First, I heard you had a course that recently finished that you had some specific fruit from. Can you share
Yeah.
that with me
Yeah. Yeah. We
or with
had
us?
It was really neat because sometimes our small groups will stay together and
mm,
sometimes they want to get involved in some other things. And that's okay. But I had about 6 guys who had been in a small group with me, and I can't remember what we had been going through before. But all of a sudden, we had 2 other guys who wanted to join us on Mondays at lunch, 11:30 to 12:30. I go and get lunch, and then I provide it for our guys so they don't have to go anywhere. We have lunch in my office at a conference room table, and it was so neat because these 2 guys wanted to join us. So I asked these 6 guys. I said, "Hey guys, I think there's a great opportunity for these two guys to join us. I'm not sure whether they really are Christians or whether they really understand Christianity, but I know that one of them, I think evidently is not, but they really want to join us. Would that be okay with you? And they said, oh, yeah, that'd be great. I said, would you guys mind if we went through Christianity Explored again? And they said, no, that'd be good because it helps me. So I'm better trained to know how to communicate the gospel. And I said, that's right. That's exactly right. Good answer. And so, these two guys joined our group. And so we just finished Christian Explored, I guess, about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, something like that, maybe longer. And both these guys committed their life to Christ.
Hmm.
The last video is come and die and live. And it was fantastic for these two guys to, and so now we talk about it.
Hmm.
They talk about, I'm trying to follow Jesus now. Help me, guys. How do I do
Hmm.
that? And so
Hmm.
it's a great thing to have these
That's
two
awesome.
brand new believers, and they're asking questions and they're doing stuff, and we're going through some other material now. And it's just been a great joy for us, and a great thing for these guys to actually see two guys
Hmm.
they work with come to Christ and who are now in their small group, and they're kind of they're kind of shepherding these two guys and watching out for them,
That's awesome.
trying to encourage them.
I love it. Now, and Bob, you were also telling me, which this was news to me as well. I asked, what kind of fruit do you think you've seen over the entirety of your time there? And you told me,
Yeah, well, we've probably seen about 40 guys come to Christ just through Christianity Explored.
That's awesome.
Just through going through it
Yeah.
in small groups, primarily just in small groups, and sometimes one-on-one. And we'll do whatever guys want to do. If they want to be in a small group, that's great. If they want to go one-on-one, we're fine. But we just want people to understand the gospel and understand who Jesus is and how he can change your life.
Hmm.
And
that's
uh,
amazing.
it's I think the last time we did it, maybe with Rico here, I actually asked our large group, I said, how many of you have gone through Christian Explored? And of 100 people, it's probably about 60 to 70 people have gone through Christian Explored. And so a number of those are new believers as a result of going through the material. So praise
That's
God for that. That's
I
just
love that.
great.
and Bob, I loved the quote, and I'm sure you've told me before, but I'd forgotten it. The one about grace, right? It's the he's been to church, he's been around Christians, but it took coming to work to be told
Hmm.
About grace.
about grace and what grace
Yeah,
was. So
yeah.
when I think about Ken, a culture of evangelism, it's setting up a place that Bob has where gospel conversations are normalized
Hmm.
to the extent that a group of guys will pause what they've been up to go back through the gospel again.
Hmm.
It's a situation where in a workplace of 500 over a decade or so, you'll see 40 people added to the kingdom who in the other two-thirds of their lives weren't getting that
Yeah.
input, but they
Right.
came to the office and someone took that opportunity to say, this
Mhm.
is who Jesus is. This is what he's done for
Hmm.
you. Isn't it amazing in one way or another?
And that's so
So
beautiful because that when we talk about and if you go through FCCI materials, you'll see it over and over again that God has given you a platform for ministry. The idea
Mhm.
behind that is that we are a steward of this gift that God has given, this business. We're just a steward of that. And that stewardship plays out through how do I approach this process of gospel living so that people see the gospel through my business. They
Mhm.
actually they experience the gospel in how we conduct business. And as a result of experiencing the gospel, then they go, okay, you got to tell me more. What's going on here? Who are you? Why do you do business the way you do it? Because you don't do business the way other people do business. You're not functioning the way other
Yeah.
people function. And we're seeing it,
Well,
we're feeling it. Yeah.
and and Ken, just like everybody, we are sinful people.
Hmm.
You know, I've been a
Yes.
believer for 50 years now, and uh, Jesus is still working on me, and I still sin all the time. And, companies are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do things perfectly at Joe
That's
Gibbs
correct.
Racing. Okay. We like to, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't. And so sometimes we do things in a way that really isn't the way we should have done it. And so we have to learn from that, but also we people then have to understand forgiveness and understand grace and what that's all about. How do we live graciously with one another?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things our country needs right now is
Mm.
how do we live gracious, how do we treat people graciously,
Yeah.
even if they have different opinions?
Right.
And that's important. That's what the gospel is all
Mm-hmm.
about. If we can't live it
Yeah.
out there,
Right.
I I don't think there's much hope for us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um,
We've got to
we
build those
can we
bridges.
can by the
Mm-hmm.
power of God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there were several things that you mentioned there, Bob, that I think are just so critical in understanding kind of what are the nuts and bolts of how do I do this, right? So you said something just like in passing, but just real simple, like I go get lunch and I bring it. And now we can sit down and we've removed this obstacle, this barrier to saying, yeah, we can knock this out in an hour. I'm not going to take away from the workday. We're not going to become an impediment to everything else you need to do. You're here to do a job, but let me create a means by which an environment where we can do this. So I really appreciate the fact
Mhm.
that you mentioned that little piece of, well, how do we do that? So anything else, any other helpful tips that you'd have as we think
There,
about this?
there are lots, but we probably don't have time for all those. But I think God gave us that philosophy of ministry in the early years. I've been doing this for 30 years now, and that is we need to serve people if we're
Mm,
expecting to reach them.
yeah.
We need to love people and serve people.
Mm,
And one of the most important things that I walk around with every day. We've had leaders from countries around the world. We had one of the leaders from the underground church in Vietnam come and speak one day, a ministry that we were supporting,
mm,
and he said everybody is looking for one thing, the same thing, just one thing. And I was like, what is that? Peace, joy, contentment. I thought of all these words. Think for a second. What's
mm,
that word? What is everybody looking for? And he said, when they find this one thing, that's all they need. And I went, gosh, I don't know what that is. And he said, they're looking to see the power of God.
mm. Yeah.
And I went, yes, that's right. If I see the power of God, it will move me
Mm-hmm.
to do whatever I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Everything else is a little
Yeah.
temporary. And
Yeah.
so that's all we really want to see is we want to see God at work. And we've seen God at work at Joe Gibbs Racing in spite of our chaplains, in spite of what we did and how we did it. And so I
Mm,
think there are lots of things we learn after we begin serving.
mm-hmm.
And, we continue to change things.
Sure.
We do different things different ways because it's not really what we do. It's
Mm,
all about the power of God and
mm-hmm.
God at work in people's hearts. And Christianity Explored is our best tool to help people really understand the power of the gospel
Mm-hmm.
to change their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Yeah.
people get that, they go,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I got this guy right now who's so excited about Jesus. He's a guy I play golf with." And he came to Christ. He said, Bob, I was scared to death to come to the small group. He said, but my life is totally changed in the last 2 months
Mm,
because of coming to this small group. And he said,
wow.
I will never be the same.
Yeah. Well,
Isn't that cool?
I love that. And here's if I could real quick, Matt. I'm sure you've got more you want to jump to, but let me real quick. What I love is here at FCCI we like to really focus on traction. How do we move to traction? What is it that
Mm,
gets us there? So often, and I'm not going to downplay any activity within the kingdom, but we can oftentimes focus on vision. We can move people to a place of intention, and we kind of leave them there. Right? Like we cast the vision and they get it. They go, oh, that's such a great, yeah, I want that. Like I get it. And they kind of they understand the gap between where they are and where they want to be. And then we move them to a
yeah,
place of being intentional, saying, okay, I want to move. I want to get there. I want to. And then we literally drop the ball and we give them no method. Like where's the
yeah,
method? How do you actually move and close the gap? How do we actually eliminate the gap? And we talk about in business all the time that's what we've got to do. We got to what is the gap? Acknowledge the gap, internalize it. Yeah, it's my problem. I've got to deal with it. Okay, how do I deal with it? Hey, leader, tell me, what do I do? And the leader has to deliver a method. There's got to be a process. And that's what I love about what I'm hearing is that you're experiencing through Christianity Explored a process by which we close the gap and say, okay, we want to get people to a place of acknowledging their need and the gospel and the value. Well, now, how do we move them? How do we actually move them there? And I love that. So
Yeah.
thankful for that. Yeah.
And that's what I think how you end up with a culture of evangelism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You end
Mm-hmm.
up with a culture of evangelism where when God is at work
Yeah.
and when people understand that our goal is to see the gospel communicated and lives changed
Mm-hmm.
by the power of God.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, okay, that's what this is all about. I mean, in 50 years, nobody's going to remember that Bob Dyer was here. But you know what? There are going to be countless families and lives
Yeah.
that are going to be
Amen.
changed, and countless people in heaven with us that we're going to say, you know what?
Mm.
That was all worth it. That was all worth it. And
Amen.
I just love it. I love Christianity Explored because it makes it simple enough for a guy like me to become an evangelist.
Mm.
Okay. I don't have to stand up to in front of a million people and preach. I can lead the guys that I really love and care about. I can lead them to
Mm.
Christ and then help them begin to grow in their faith.
Just leverage a
And I
great
think
tool. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the Great
Mm.
Commission. Last time I heard was to go and make disciples. So step one is let's lead them to
That's
Christ.
right. Right.
Absolutely.
I
Well,
love it.
Ken, I know we want to get to a Q&A, but I just want to share a few added thoughts and then go there if that
Mm.
works for you.
Please.
First, yeah, you talked about traction, and it's how do we get started,
Mm.
um, which I think is an important question. As leaders on this webinar, I think the first question to ask yourself is whether I'm the one doing it or not, how can I bless it?
Mm.
How can I lead in
Mm-hmm.
a way that allows for a normalizing of gospel conversations?
Mhm,
It might be that in good old business fashion, we pull together a committee where you find those that you know that already love Jesus and would share in your burden if blessed to create that culture. But there has to be that executive sponsorship. Things
Mm-hmm.
can happen quietly, but when we talk about creating a culture,
Yeah.
it's what Coach Gibbs did at
mhm,
Joe Gibbs Racing, where he said, this is going to be a place where we care about our most valuable asset. And how do we care about them? Well, as Christians, we believe it's making sure that they know about the person of Jesus Christ and what he did for them,
mhm,
first and foremost. And then, right, it's easy to hear what he did. He went out and got a chaplain and got things going that way. But there's even before then, it's about finding two or three facilitators who can lead a Christianity Explored course, and
mhm,
then just people who are willing to invite. As Bob put it, right? Charlie, the accountant, probably already knew that his friend cared for him,
mhm,
and having that relational equity is really what you need to invite.
mhm,
Um, and so that's really what's needed to get things started. And in terms of next steps out of the webinar, Ken, you've got a QR code of mine. I don't know if you've got it ready at your fingertips there. Um, and maybe we can put this up off and on throughout.
I
But
will. What I'll do is I'm going to put up the page it leads to because the QR code will actually come out in the email. There's a link right in the
oh,
email that's going to
perfect.
come out, so that people
Excellent.
will grab it. But let me just pop it up here while you're chatting. I'm going to pop that screen up. So this is where it'll take them when they go through on that QR code.
So that's why it welcomes the attendee. But as you scroll down a little bit, it tells you what is Christianity Explored. If you keep going, there's this area with the gentleman in it there. It says, what is it? Click here to check out Christianity Explored courses free online. So our resources are sold.
Mm.
Bluntly, I hate that reality. I would much rather be your missional partner than being in a financial relationship where you're purchasing from me. We're working slowly towards being able to give the content away physically,
mhm,
but digitally we are right now. Because I think the first question that people comes up in people's mind is, I want to see what this thing is. So if you click there, there is we would love for you to give us your information. That's only because of some of our publishing relationships to give away the content digitally. We do just have to capture who it is. You won't be
Sure.
spammed. Um, you won't be spammed. You'll have plenty of opportunities to not hear too much. And then second, in that area where it says create a culture of evangelism in your business, we created a slide deck that talks a lot about what we're talking about now. At the same time, it gives you the opportunity to catch a little bit of vision, might be something you can share with somebody. But the big takeaway is if this is interesting to you, we'd love to spend 30 minutes with you. Myself, a number of our board members, we've got a number of other leaders who are successful business leaders themselves. They understand what it is to create a culture of evangelism. And we would love to meet with you, talk to you about what it is to get CE going in your context, and then potentially set up some further training or next steps with you. So
Hmm.
that's what that looks like. I really encourage you, if this is at all intriguing, though, to click on that link. There's a place you can explore some of the courses there. But that link where you can get to the courses for free, that is um, that is all the resources right there at your fingertips. We've got 5 of them. Sometimes it's just easiest to play with it to get your head around it, and that's what we've
Mhm.
done with that. We call it our beta web app. It's beta because we're building out something much bigger, but first we're just learning from what people like and love about it. Bob's already given me, I think,
It's,
about 15 features that we need to add, but he loves it.
but it's fantastic already. It's fantastic already. We love it.
And what I tell pastors who are trying to get their heads around our material is I say, find that guy who sits in the back, whose girlfriend's a Christian, and he's just kind of coming along trying to figure this thing out, and
Hmm.
say, can I buy you coffee? And us just go through the book of Mark together
Hmm.
and kind of give you the basics of what this thing is you've started coming to. And so for one of you, it might be find Charlie in accounting and buy him coffee and sit down and start going through it the way Bob does in his office at 1 o'clock on Mondays, one-on-one. And so, yeah, that's kind of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I.
And, and let me chime in on one thing. That was how we started using Christianity Explored. I heard Rico talk about it, and it didn't take me long. Within 20 minutes, I said, "Have you got one here? I will buy whatever you've got. Give it to me." And I brought it back, and within like 2 weeks, I'd started a small group
Mhm.
going through Christian Explored, and I was like, "This is fantastic. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's not a talking head." Which you can get plenty of those that are just going to read you through the Bible, and that's not what it is. I mean, it is a well done video. I wouldn't change a thing because I'm so used to seeing it now, but I know they've got to update it at times. But it's just that's where you start.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage everybody who watches this to say, just start a small group wherever you have relationships. And if it's 2 guys, that's great. If it's 10 guys, that's great. Numbers is not the issue, but lead a small group with people going through Christian Explored with the app right now. You can do it
Mm-hmm.
today. You can start today.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Bob says guys so much because he's in the racing industry, and I think it's about 90% men there in the building. But
Yeah,
women are
that's right.
definitely welcome as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that
Yeah.
was literally the question I was going to ask you, Bob. So you answered it. That's beautiful. Uh, you just launched right
I beat
into
you
it.
to the punch,
I said
huh?
I didn't even have to
I
ask the
beat you to
question.
the punch.
Thanks, Bob. That's
Yeah,
great. Yeah. How do we?
good.
What would you say? What's the way to start? And you just told us. So I
Hey,
think that's.
hey, I was in computer software sales before I started, so I understand.
Oh well, I do really appreciate this, guys. Very thankful for the opportunity. Like I said, the having these tools that move us to that place of traction to say, okay, how do I actually accomplish that goal? This I know I want to do this. God's given that burden, but how do I actually move to that place of seeing this happen? And so that's love that, and I know our folks will take advantage of it. And I would just encourage folks, even if you're in an FCCI group, well, this would be a great thing to go through in your group. Just use that as your point of exposure. Go through it together as Christian business owners and leaders. Go through this content together, experience it together, talk through it, talk through how you will use it in your organization. And then in that process, as you're going through its launch and get those groups going within your
Oh, I
business,
love that.
because that'd be just a great way to say, okay, let's get exposure to this ourselves, and then let's move this out, and then we can hold each other accountable in the process, learn from each other, bounce ideas off each other as we go along.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And if people do that, I'd love to hear from you. Let us know you're doing it. We get better when we hear of organizations and groups and whatnot that are doing it and how things are working and what's working well for them.
yeah,
So we'd
yeah,
love to hear when people are using it.
for sure.
Mm.
Well, Matt, I
Absolutely.
know for the folks that will be at our conference next week, they can obviously look you up there, and
Yep, I'll be there. I'll have a table. I'll have some of these resources in hand physically if you want to leaf through physical things, if that's a little more your style, or play with it on my computer or any of the anything in between. We'll have it all out there.
Mm.
so we're looking forward to that. Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and for what you are doing, your ongoing ministry. And you said you have how many chaplains then now that are now involved?
Well, we have four just at Joe Gibbs Racing, but we have people who work with chaplains on 5 continents now. So we have
Yeah,
people all over the world who are trying to mobilize
love it.
chaplains to work with sports teams.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks for that work.
Yeah,
Thanks for what you're doing there.
that's right.
So I want to pray before we wrap up, if we could today, and we'll just close in prayer.
Absolutely.
Not how we normally wrap up one of our
Perfect.
webinars, but feel like this would be a great time to wrap in prayer.
Good.
So, Father, I
Absolutely.
thank you so much for these men. Thank you for their calling within your kingdom, that we get to link arms, and that this is just a beautiful example of what you have designed with this interdependence within the kingdom of God. We are called to be reliant upon each other as through the Spirit you unite us, bring us together around your vision, your purpose, what it is that you would want us to accomplish. So, Father, I thank you for these tools. I thank you for Rico and others who have just seen the need and have stepped in to take responsibility and to deliver something that can be used for your glory to impact lives for Christ. So, Father, I just pray that you continue to bless Joe Gibbs Racing, your protection, your care over those that are involved. God, would you bless them? And for Matt in his travels upcoming, his conversations, meeting with the board there in Canada, and Father, for your continued work through Christianity Explored, would you just bless and expand the reach and allow this to be a tool that's used mightily by others within your kingdom to be a part of this gospel mission. So, Father, we thank you. Thank you for these platforms of ministry that you have blessed us with and the opportunity to just be used of you to continue to be your goodness, your grace, your kindness in this world, that we would spread that and that people would see and know you because of how you just flow through us in the moments of our days. So we just thank you for this time in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen,
Thank you very
very
much.
much. Appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting some of you this next week.
All right. Thank you all. Take care.
Ken.
Bye-bye.